Good evening. I've been looking forward to seeing you all, even though I'm not seeing you at all, but I've been looking forward to talking to you about the subject of habits. And it's something I talk about very often, I know. So, where to begin? I know that ages ago I asked you, I think probably at the beginning of this month's theme, I asked you to consider what your habits were. And I would have been looking now to go through them, but I was going to use my phone, but my computer's busted, so I can't get on Facebook on there. But I seem to remember there was a range of answers. And so, like, the way that I consider habits to be is broadly defined. I've got my notes, sorry, so I might be looking away sometimes, so please excuse me if I do. Broadly defined as a repetitive thought or behaviour that we wish we didn't experience. So let me know if you agree with that definition that I have. But also I break them down into two kind of separate parts, but essentially it's the same thing because it's coming from thought. So behavioural habits, and I've written down the ones that I think, but I'm sure there's probably more. If you can relate to any of the behavioural habits or I miss out one that you do, type it in because it's useful to get the feedback on here. So I've put drinking as a behavioural habit, eating, compulsive eating, comfort eating, under eating, being on the internet, ironically, but scrolling, just like, mindless scrolling, that's a habit. People will go to their phones in the morning. I think the scrolling, the internet is a big one. It's a big one. Overspending, sex, gambling, lashing out at your partner, studying, qualifications, that sort of thing, face picking, cleaning, obsessive cleaning. Gemma's put mine scrolling on social media, telling myself I'm not good enough. Yes, so the second one I was going to say, because I was looking at what they wrote down as habits. Mental or thought-based habits. Fears or phobias. Persistent thoughts, for example, being judged by others or fearing something bad happening. Anxiety. Common fears and phobias are considered thought-based habits because of the basis of the habit is fear created by subjective habitual thoughts that appear real and compelling. And yeah, that's another one. I should have written that down. Hoarding. Yeah, so anything else, like I've tried to put them into two categories. Behavioural habits where you're focused on the action. So a lot of us will say, I drink too much or we have a lot of thinking around our drinking, or, I compulsively eat and I can't stop thinking about food, or, I'm scrolling too much, or I overspend. There's lots and lots of things that we'll do and we'll make that the action like the tip of the iceberg, the problem. Whereas other people, myself included, have habits of thought related to kind of mental thoughts, mental habits, i.e. thinking I'm not good enough, or lots of anxious thinking about, i.e. going to the dentist. But that's common, fear of being sick, that's another one I've heard. Fear of not being liked, fear of public speaking. A lot of my colleagues have fear of doing these Facebook lives. So, there's many, 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 many habits of thoughts and habits of behaviour. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about familiar, repetitive content, thoughts that we take to be real. All right? Which one didn't you think of as a habit? Food, good or bad? Just too much food. Worrying about what people think about me not being good enough for my family and friends. Fear of seeing people being sick. I have to say, I used to have fear of being sick, certainly after I had my son, because I was sick for 9 months and then I continued to be sick after he was born in the hospital. No, after that I was just like, But like in retrospect, I can really see that, and that didn't last hugely long. But anyway, I'm aware of that fear as well, how that's created. Rescuing, so that's a habit of, I guess, behaviour, because again, it's all coming from like this innocent place. So that's what I wanted to talk into. That's what I wanted to sort of explain to you, how I consider a habit. And I know that might be somewhat controversial, having had a mental health background and all the different diagnoses that people have. The way that I see it now much more clearly is that it's habitual thought over and over and over again. So how this tends to start is that it's really rooted in a misguided attempt to feel better. So a long time ago, you will have had an experience that made you feel uncomfortable, and you didn't like that feeling. So in an innocent attempt, and really, really innocent attempt to feel better in that moment, you will have stumbled across a way that you realised in a moment made you feel better, or took you out of the feeling that you felt was uncomfortable. This often happens when we're very young. Sorry, let me see what that says. I worry about how people view me. Some think I'm super clever and I can't see that at all, and worry they will see me for who I really am. Who are you really? Aside from a wonderful human being. So when we were little, we stumbled across a way that might have been not usually alcohol, but something sugary related. You're not average, and I think that's what you were answering. So if I can give you an example of just like using a behaviour. So say it's biscuits, for example. You had something happen, and it could have been anything, like being bullied at school, right? And you went home, you didn't like how it made you feel. You felt separate, you felt disconnected, you felt hurt, you felt worried, like all those things. We feel uncomfortable with the feelings that it's bringing up. And we'll eat, or we'll collect, or we'll, kids obviously now going on the internet. I didn't have that when I was little, but I certainly had access to sugary sweets. And so in our innocence, and this continues, so please don't think I'm judging adults at all, but I'm just trying to give you an idea, an indication of when these things start. It usually starts when we're little, and we find a way to make us feel better. And it does. And so our lower brain remembers that. Now, there's two parts of our brain, the lower brain and the higher brain. And the lower brain is often called the reptilian brain or the lizard brain, but it's the oldest part of us. It's the oldest part in terms of evolution. It's the oldest part of our brain, which is responsible for survival. And because of that, and it's essentially a machine, because of that, it's like food, water, warmth, sex, that sort of thing, reproduction. It wants you to survive, and it likes routine. So with regards to that, it will have remembered on some level, some very basic level, that you felt better when you did the action. And I'm also talking about rescuing, because if when we are little or growing up, and we feel better when we've helped somebody, it's made us feel good. We can kind of feel that that's made us feel good. Your lower brain will absolutely remember that that's made you feel good. So in terms of like anxiety, anxious thinking, there will be a connection to having made you feel better in some way, okay? Now, as we grow older, this kind of innocent, misguided attempt to feel better then looks like the problem. It does temporarily make us feel better. But then we're looking over here saying, now this is the problem. I eat too much, I drink too much, I hoard too much, I'm constantly rescuing people and I don't know why, and I feel drained and I feel tired, and there's suddenly that which was innocently a way to feel better. We don't know, this is all so innocent. We don't know what we're doing because we don't know that we're already enough. We don't know that it's an inside-out job. And we are taught, the whole of society really is taught, that it's outside in, that's how we work. So it's outside circumstances and outside people that can make you feel better. So what we do is that we then look at the habit as the problem, the habit of thought, the habit of behaviour. But because we keep replaying this, because we've paid attention to it for so long, you've got neuroplasticity in there. You've got neural pathways firing up, all right? So in our brain, you've got all these neural pathways. So every time you pay attention to that thought or a thought, you strengthen the neural pathways in your brain. So if you had the thought chocolate when you were little, each time you innocently went to the chocolate bar, it strengthened the neural pathways. Bang, strengthen, bang, strengthen, bang, strengthen, bang. Because if I tell you to think of a pen, this pen's going to make you feel better. How likely are you to believe me? Not very likely. So the chances are you're not going to think of a pen every time you feel sad. So you're not going to strengthen that neural pathway because you know that I'm talking bullshit. But because chocolate and drink and exercise was one of my things, face picking was one of my things too, right? Now that wasn't particularly pleasant, and I've heard as well over my years and years and years of working with people that people who self-harm, they get some release, and that's essentially what I was doing, self-harming my face. It wasn't that it was pleasurable, but what it provided for me, looking back, was escape, and that's what it's all doing. So I knew I would get very, very stressed, and I'd find myself standing in the mirror and I would be picking. And often I would actually find myself after the fact. So I'd kind of go in a daze to the mirror and pick, but kind of really subconsciously, and then kind of come round and there would be blood all over my face. Now, I'm not saying that that was pleasant, and I'm not saying that it helped me feel good, but of course when I look back at that behaviour, when it started after my brother died, it must have taken me out of the present moment, and that's what we're doing, right? We are looking for a way to get out of the present moment because we're scared of our feelings often. And that's why it's rooted in a good place. It's rooted in self-love because it's the best we know to do. Now, unfortunately, because it was started, I don't know why I started picking my face when I was 21. I can only say my brother died and my father, I can pinpoint the time, but I don't know what made me do that. I haven't got a clue, but I do know that it went on for years and years and years and years, and then that became a problem to me. Whereas when I was 21, there must have been something in that was soothing. There must have been something in that took me out of what was going on for me, even momentarily. So I can see how it was rooted in misguided attempt to feel better because it provided a numbness. It provided an escape. Okay? So if you think about... Am I right in thinking we are not aware of these emotional thoughts? you are right. So there are thoughts. So some thoughts you'll hear. Now, I'm going to go into this as well. We have what's called an addictive voice. And some of you will probably recognise what I mean by that. So, okay. So in the sense of you have repetitive thinking. Chocolate, just eat, just one more time. So this is what I'm talking about. The addictive voice you'll be aware of. Start tomorrow. It won't matter. One drink won't matter. One biscuit won't matter. There's no point. You might as well do your habit, whatever it is, because that's the addictive. Where's my little fucker? Hang on, guys. I can see my little fucker. Okay. I must have been using that. On a client earlier. Okay, so we have an addictive voice that we're aware of. Okay, now you know what I mean. It's the voice that tells you you're not good enough. It's the voice that tells you just do it one more time. It's the voice that will convince you that what I'm saying is rubbish and that there must be another program. I've spent thousands on programs over the years because this little fucker told me just this one more time. Just go and get that glass of wine. One glass, everyone drinks. What's the problem, right? So that's your addictive voice. Now there's also thoughts in the background, the subconscious thoughts that run the show. So for me, as an example of that was my anxious thinking. Like I wasn't acutely aware of the anxious thinking that was going on, running, like I knew I had to have the same knife and fork, but I didn't have a conscious thought saying to me, have the same knife and fork. It was just something that I had to do, like an obsessive compulsive thing. And I can't tell you that I had any awareness that I had a thought. It was just something I had to do. Another thing I remembered that I had to do was always cut the labels out of clothes. Every single item of clothing I had to cut the label out. And if I saw labels in my family's clothes, it would stress me out. I mean, God, some of the other things, I have to try and think of all the things I used to do. Anyway, so some of them you're aware of. They're repetitive. They go round and round and round and round like a little stale fucker. And some of them, if we've got a core belief that we're not good enough, and it's our core belief, that limiting belief is running the show. So we sort of show up like that, looking for validation outside of ourselves, looking to people, looking to things, all that stuff outside of us to make us feel better, but it never really works long term. So Gemma said, what about voices that say it's all going to go wrong, you're going to lose all your teeth, it's going to be painful, you won't be able to face going out, you're going to look awful? That's the addictive voice. That's this telling you, basically, the driving force, Gemma, there is don't go to the dentist. And that little voice, this little fucker, is giving you all the reasons why you shouldn't go to the dentist. So it's creating the fear. So in terms of like our minds, if you think about it like this snow globe, if I shake this up, that's now all your thoughts about going to the dentist. Heavy, 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 playing over and over and over again, like on repeat, like Justin Bieber on repeat, right? It's just the same thing. But if you don't pay attention, and because you're paying attention to those voices, those neural pathways have been strengthened over and over and over and over again. Okay, that's the part of the brain that's the machine-like brain. It likes familiarity and it likes routine. Okay, so you paying attention to this means that your mind, all those thoughts are about the dentist. Okay, If you stop paying attention to those thoughts, this is neuroscience mixed with kind of spirituality. So I'm trying to give it to you from a kind of neuroscience point of view as well, because it might help you to see something for yourself, okay? And this is what I'm aiming to do. You are your own best wise guide. There's nothing that I can tell you that will shine a light on what you can tell yourself or what you can hear yourself. And this understanding is based around insightfully seeing something for yourself. So I'm just trying to give you some kind of neuroscience to back it up as well, okay? You feel like you can't make it stop because you're listening to this at the moment and it's telling you it's real. If you stop paying attention to those thoughts, any of you, and I know a lot of people will completely relate to what you're saying, they'll just have their different form of what those repetitive thoughts look like. You don't have to say sorry at all. You don't have to say sorry at all. If you can't make it stop, it's okay as well. Like at the moment, it's okay. Try and take the judgment out. Try and take the pressure off. We all have these repetitive thoughts, and that's why it's been named the addictive voice, because it is addictive, because it goes on and on and on and on, trying to tell you that this is the worst case scenario and, basically what you've written there. But we'll all have our own form of that. Mine was around loss. Okay, so I used to have a lot of repetitive thoughts if people didn't respond to my text messages. It would go round, they're dead, they're dead, they're dead, like constantly. That's what would go on for me. Since I've stopped paying attention to those thoughts which come in, which are familiar, coming from the lower brain, routine, right? They don't come as much anymore. So the neural pathways stop firing. And that's when neuroplasticity comes in, and there's been loads and loads and loads of research done about this. So you can search that on the internet about neuroplasticity. If you're paying attention to those thoughts that you believe are real and that you believe mean something about you, they will keep coming. When they keep coming, we go to our habit to make ourselves feel better. Okay, so you can see kind of the loop, right? We feel shit. We take everything really seriously. We don't like our experience. We don't like feeling the way we feel. We go to our habit, and that might be conscious or unconscious. In my case with face picking, it was unconscious. In the case of wine, it was pretty conscious. I was aware that I would have the thought wine, and then it became habitual. Oh, it's 5 o'clock, for example, right? Once I stopped paying attention to them, once I could see that they actually weren't me, they weren't who I was, and that I was much more than I'd ever realised, as are you, I stopped taking them so seriously, and I stopped being afraid of my experience, because actually there is no feeling and no thought that can ever hurt you. You are bigger than any thought or feeling, and your feelings are only ever telling you about the content of your thinking. They're not telling you who you are as a person. Yes, I do, Steph. I do. I have a very different relationship with alcohol now, though. I had a long period off. So after my dad died, I ended up in hospital, as some of you will know. Some of you won't know that. And I stopped for a long time. And then I discovered this understanding. And do I eat junk food? Let me just dig out my bag of secrets now. I'm very happy to be honest about this. Junk food. This is interesting because I've never really eaten junk food. So junk food for you may be different to how I see it. Okay? We all have these, again, arbitrary labels around food and drink. Now, with regards to drink, yes, I do drink. and I enjoy it, but I no longer have episodes where I black out. I no longer have episodes when I drink where I cry or I'm angry, which was a lot of things that used to happen to me there. And also, and the biggest thing, is that I'd wake up every single time after I'd had a drink and be paranoid. I'd be worried about what I'd said. I'd be going over and over in my mind, like classic post-alcohol fear. All right, I no longer get that, and that is just incredible. But I also know that when the familiar, if I'm feeling unsettled, okay, and the thought comes in, alcohol or get a drink, I know that's my alarm clock. I know that's my rumble strip. I know that it's not a drink I want, it's a clearer mind I want. So I just don't take any notice of that thought anymore, and I might go and do something else. I might sit in my unsettled feeling. I might kind of think, what's going on here for me? But I also know it doesn't mean anything. And with regards to junk food, I just eat. Now, I've had a problem with, I used to have a very dysfunctional relationship with food. At one point, I would say that I was orthorexic and wouldn't eat, bread, or wheat, milk, sugar. And I promoted this as well in my boot camps, which I feel a bit sad about now. But of course, I was doing the best I could with the thinking that made sense to me at the time. So now I eat what I want and when I want, and I find that I don't overeat because I'm not starving myself. I'm not in that binge-starve cycle. And when we're in that binge-starve cycle, of course your body needs food, it needs nutrition. So I'm just much more aware of my thoughts. But I haven't eaten McDonald's for years and years and years, so I never drunk fizzy. I don't know what junk food means to you. Yes, I'll eat crisps. Yes, I'll eat chocolate if I want. I'll kind of eat what I want, but I have a very different relationship with it now. I don't have any thinking about it. That's the difference. I don't weigh myself continually, all of those kind of things, those habits. Now, do I keep freezing? Where did I get to? I'm loving all these questions, guys. I hope I'm not freezing. Am I here, guys? Am I here? So I had a little exercise for you that I wanted you to do. See now. What I would say, right, is if you have a McDonald's, have a McDonald's and enjoy it. Now, if you remember my stress video, my stress one of these, you'll know that if you have stressful thinking, you activate the stress response. So if you eat a McDonald's and then you feel guilt and worry and shame and, oh my God, I'm getting fat and all of that stuff from this fucker, you will activate the stress response. When you activate the stress response, you will produce the insulin, produce the sugar, as if you're going to run away. And then we don't run away. So then the sugar gets stored as fat. So eat the fucking McDonald's if you want it, but don't stress about it. And that's the biggest thing with food, is that food is food. We can label it good, we can label it bad, we can label it treats. These are all made up in our own head, right? We give them arbitrary labels, but that doesn't mean anything because we've just made that up. Food is food is food. Some food has more nutritional value than others. You know that. You've got common sense. You intuitively, you're all very clever, wise women. So if you have a McDonald's, eat the McDonald's and enjoy it. If you have cake, enjoy it. But there'll be a point where you no longer need to eat like 10 slices. And if you do, it's because you've got caught up in unsettled thinking. That's all. That's all. And you are stronger than this. You're stronger than this. If you have the thought, cake or wine or hoard or whatever it is, it's just you've shaken this snow globe up. That's all. Do you feel guilty whatever I eat? Yeah. So a lot of my one-to-one clients have exactly the same, and they have like, I'll buy for the children and my husband or whatever it is, and I won't eat what they're eating because it's quote unquote fattening, and then they don't buy themselves anything, and then they end up eating what they didn't want to eat and then more because they're in their thinking. And then so the cycle continues. Take the judgment out. Now I wanted you to do an exercise, and I'd really love for you to post your answers in the group. There's a book called Steering by Starlight by Martha Beck. Some of you may have heard of it. Sorry, what's the time? I always go over half an hour. Steering by Starlight, Martha Beck. And in it, she talks about how our inner lizard from our lower brain has predictable stories that you can easily spot, which helps in viewing them as neurological junk, okay? Which means we can dismiss them because they're not who we are. Now, what she does in the book is she encourages readers to make a list of their inner lizard's favourite tunes. The more quickly you can recognise particular messages as coming from your lower brain, the less likely you are to confuse them with you or your wisdom or take them seriously. So, your task and mission, should you choose to accept it for this evening, is to really have a think about your addictive voice, your inner lizard's repetitive tunes, and what it's saying to you. So as I was kind of alluding to before, mine would say, everyone drinks. When I was an addictions counsellor, well, they're drinking more than you, a bottle of wine a night's fine. Just go to the shop, it will be okay. It's only a £5. Everyone drinks at night, it's normal. You can quit tomorrow, Monday will be good. These are the sort of things that I'm just one example with regards to drinking. But yeah, make a list. That's your mission, all right? Joe, I don't know how I discover who I am. Not sure I've ever known. Now, I bet you didn't ask yourself that when you were 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. I bet you lived pretty much moment to moment, and you are still that same person inside that you were then as you are now. You've just got a lot of thinking about who you think you are now. That's all. And you need to see beyond the concepts we have of ourselves, what we think we look like, because that's only like what we think we look like. And as I've talked to you before, everything's created by thought, and we don't see ourselves how others see us. We're seeing ourselves through our own eyes, and our own eyes are highly critical. Who you truly are at your core is unbroken, is beautiful, is a stronger light than you'll ever know, has tremendous wisdom and courage and confidence. Those things are your birthright. That's who you truly are. You are absolutely incredible. You all are. And it's my mission. You have a mission for this evening. My mission for as long as you stay with me is to get you to see that. The gift that you have. The gift that you are. Okay. I hope that's made sense. I will put a date up for our group chat where we can look at this more and you can get coaching from me and as a group, which is always another one of my favourite times. So I'll put a date up soon. What else? I can't remember. Anyway, if you watch this and you have any more questions, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. I love you all. I think you're absolutely brilliant. If you have any questions about this, I'll try and do either another live if I need to, or I'll write. But I actually find it easier to speak than I do to type. Can't shut me up here. Anyway, I hope that's helped. I hope you've heard something in what I've said. You're so welcome. You're really welcome, everyone. Sorry about the computer. And yeah, have a lovely night and sleep well. Yeah, just keep on being you and not this, because you're brilliant and this is a little shit. Take care. Lots of love. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Loads of love.